Oh, I haven't had the ukulele love in a while.
I haven't had the ukulele love in a while. I was actually just thinking the other day that I had not played on my ukulele for a long time. What's this? I was thinking the other day that I had not. I don't even know what song that is. Wait, why am I getting echo? Oh no, I'm not.
Because I had the sound on my phone.
I was like, what was
My
that?
bad. My bad.
Yeah, come on now. You know this song, right? I wish I was an apple hanging from a
A
tree.
tree.
Every time my sweetheart passes, she takes a bite of me. She told me that she loved me. She called me sugar plum. She threw her arms around me. I thought my time had come. Come along home, Cindy, Cindy. Come along home, Cindy, Cindy. Come along home, Cindy, Cindy. Marry you sometime. 'Cause Cindy's got religion. She had it once before. But when she hears my old guitar, she's the first one on the floor. I wish I had a needle as fine as I could see. I'd sew that girl to my coattails, and down the road I'd go. Get along home, Cindy, Cindy. Get along home, Cindy, Cindy. Get along home, Cindy, Cindy. I'll marry you sometime. 'Cause Cindy in the springtime, Cindy in the fall. If I can't have my Cindy girl, I have no girl at all. If you guys don't know, my 2-year-old son sings that song as loud as he can, the first verse, anytime anybody asks him something. And anytime you get him a microphone. It's a song he learned from his grandfather in Kansas. And so he sings that super loud. Lauren's dad. So, of course,
It's
I had to
funny.
learn how to play it.
Of course. Of course. I can attest to that. I heard I wish I had an apple many, many times over the last week.
And now he thinks it's funny to change the words. So the other day he was like, I wish I was a window sitting in the car. Which I think is like pretty brilliant of a 2-year-old to be able to switch up the lyrics like that. And
Yeah.
keep the words and the tune. I don't know. Seems pretty legit. Almost.
I think it is pretty legit to quit. Don't quit.
Don't
Don't quit.
quit. Don't ever quit.
Oh, you don't sound too bad, man. You don't sound too bad. I thought you said your voice was gone, but I guess it's come back today some.
Yeah, I'm up heart low, so recover that vocal cords recover quick.
I can't get rid of this little
Sunday.
cough that I've got, so
Ooh, you're probably from hanging out with Sam.
maybe.
I leading Sunday morning singing was a little bit rough. There's definitely had to focus on my air support so as to not crack on some high notes. But then after that, I did pretty good. I didn't do anything Sunday night. Sunday afternoon, we just went home, and I put on the old sweatpants and vegged. Yesterday, I had a couple meetings in the morning, and then I just came home and I vegged. Like around 2 o'clock, I think is when I got home. And then tonight,
Yeah.
we might go play softball, or we might. I have a couple errands and some more work I need to get done. One of our kids is who just went on a trip with us is really sick, so I'm gonna put together a care box and drop it off at their house.
That's
Ding
good.
dong ditch.
Yeah, we're all growing a beard. man's face should never be bare. We just want some facial hair. We're anticipating, yeah, everyone's waiting for beer.
Well, hey, good morning, everybody. This is Behind the Beards. And on Behind the Beards, we pull the curtain back, take a look behind the scenes, and reveal the things you need to know about the people who are called to lead your churches and your ministries. I am Joshua Fowler, a preaching minister in Baton Rouge, Louisiana. And my brother, Aaron Partlow, youth minister in Longview, Texas.
Say it.
I know. I just looked up and I was like, man, did I put that in there? My brother from another mother.
I thought you were going to say, and my mate.
Oh, that would take too long to explain. But how's things going in your neck of the woods, my man?
Things are going pretty good. We got some unfortunate. I hate to 6/22/2021 that I still have to talk about COVID. So we do have couple kids with some COVID cases and some other kids who aren't feeling well. We just got back from Soul Quest in York, Nebraska, and
That's right.
it was so good. You know what? This is the truth. When anything good is going in your life, when God is really present in your life and you can feel that goodness and you're doing what he wants you to do, that is when Satan wants to come out and attack you. And throw you down and all sorts of stuff like that. And I can definitely say that I can feel Satan trying. And so at this moment, I'm just trying to just keep at it, you know?
No, I hear you. And, contrary to what my voice might say, I actually feel great. Like a little cough I can't get rid of and a scratchy voice. But I always come home from York with kind of a renewed energy to do the things that we do.
Right.
A lot of good stuff going on, man. A lot of good stuff. Kind of excited to get home and get back to work. So.
Yeah, I agree. Yeah,
You
we're
agree?
working on. We have a youth rally that's coming up in the next couple of days, and next couple of days. I hope not. And then next month, I got a week or two. So I can finalize all those details. And
Yeah, man. Christmas in July. How much more fun can it get?
Christmas in July. We were already hosting a youth rally in July when Lauren goes, you know what my favorite thing to do with a youth group is to have a Christmas party. And we didn't get to have one this year. She's like, what if we did a Christmas in July Christmas party? And I said, what if we did a Christmas in July youth rally? She was like, oh. So now we're trying to put that together and get that working out.
That's right. It one of the things I find myself seeking for these moments of, I don't want to say normalcy because it's not really normal,
right?
But I'm looking for these benchmarks that let us know that kind of a we're back kind of a mentality, And churches are starting to put in some fellowship activities. Man, we've missed fellowship.
Right.
We really missed being a part of the body and together in worship. But man, those fellowship activities of getting together outside of our normal times, you forget how much of the lifeblood that is, for a church and building relationships. So for those things to come back, for camps to be hosted again this summer.
Yeah.
And maybe not even at full capacity, but at some capacity.
Got a lot of kids going after church camp for sure.
Yeah. It's really, really good. It's going to be good and nice to see what happens when people come back together, how much greater appreciation we have for those things, and how we can capture that moving forward and maybe not forget it.
For sure.
We're going to start today with I don't want to say it is difficult. It's difficult to talk about, but something we really need to talk as we kind of look into. You just deleted that. I thought you were going to do it. The kind of a burnout, maybe ministerial depression, the way that churches and ministers work together to keep our relationships moving forward,
Right. Yeah.
because it's easy to really kind of get tied up in things that are going on.
It is, and it's easy to like forget. It's easy to forget what the church is and how we act and how we treat each other. It's easy to get lost in those scenarios, and that causes. I mean, it's such a unique environment as it is, and we don't know how to. I feel like now I'm talking about as like people in general. Like sometimes we don't know how to like treat or react to church. We always want to say, well, we always do it this way here, whether it be, you know, hey, I'm from the military, or hey, I'm from the white collar business place, or hey, I'm from the blue collar business place, or whatever it is. And we try to like do church or run church based off of those, when in reality, like, you know, a lot of Christianity is trying to be more like Christ. And so, like, we should try to treat our businesses or our church more like we do church, instead of trying to treat our church more like we do our businesses, right?
Yeah, no,
And
absolutely.
so yeah, like you're saying, like, so I think Josh and I, we were thinking about this idea of moving towards doing a couple episodes about ministry depression, the dropout rate of ministers right now, and how much COVID has affected. But I don't know, like, affected is the right word. I feel like COVID hasn't affected the church. Get me wrong. Okay, hear me. COVID hasn't affected the church. It's amplified some things that we've been ignoring.
Yeah, it's revealed some things. Yeah,
You don't want to say revealed because we said that in our title.
that's true. But it has revealed it.
But it has revealed it. Well, it's amplified it to the point where we could see it. And
Right.
now it's like really effective. Like, you can't ignore it any longer. It's like this one white hair that's in my beard right here drives me crazy. And it only drives me crazy every time we do the podcast. And the more that it gets whiter and longer, the more amplified and annoying that it gets. Kind of this idea. And so, so I don't know. I don't know if you're ready for me to read this passage or not. But
Yeah, go for it.
I kind of want to. But we've started. I talked with Josh a little bit about this. We were talking about this idea of ministry depression and the dropout rate and some things like this. It's not even minister drop. They're just burned out. Like, they're just tired and exhausted, because it's hard work, and being a deacon is hard work, and like, church is hard. Like, it just
It
is.
is.
Like, it gets really difficult and it gets really hard, and God is our fuel and He's our passion, and we do it for Him and His greater glory. But I mean, Satan just wears on us. So we have been studying Revelation, which people are like, ooh, so risque. But really,
Yeah,
we're just
no
studying
kidding.
like we're just studying the first few chapters about the letters to the church. And I was sitting around and we were reading this Revelations chapter 2. I think so. And it says, I know what you do and how hard you work and never give up. I know that you don't accept evil people. You have tested those who say they are apostles but are not, but found that they are liars. And then he goes on and says, you never stop trying. You have endured troubles for my name and have not given up. But I have this against you. You have left the love you had in the beginning. And I guess when I read that, I felt like the Holy Spirit was going and like
Yeah.
hitting me in the heart, because I have been in that place multiple times where I am so sick and tired of youth ministry, where I'm so sick and tired of just dealing with all of the yuck and all of the attitudes, and my own included. I look in the mirror and I go, I don't even know who you are. You're just like, ugh, you know. And this passage just hit me as this reminder of what was that love that you had. And I guess, Josh, I've been talking a lot, so you can do this first question, is like, what drew you to Christ in the first place? What was that love that you had that drew you to Christ in the first place?
I put that question on there for you.
Yeah, Well,
That was no. Um,
bummer.
I come from a long heritage of faith in my family. And I think I was probably 24, 25 before I really found a love for Christ. I was baptized when I was 12, because I was 13. My sister was 12. But I was born on a Tuesday, and I was at church the next day on Wednesday.
Wow.
Um,
Faithful
were-
Christian from the beginning. Amazing.
Yeah, I know, and I've never
missed a Sunday
service
or a Wednesday yet.
perfect attendance. No, it's just the nature of my family growing up, and my grandparents were faithful Christians. They always studied the Bible with us. We were just always at church on vacations, no matter where we were. We were always there. So there was this expectation of what would happen. And I believe that I was baptized for the right reasons, and I knew what I was doing.
Yeah.
But it was always just kind of this is just what we do in my family. And it just comes to you as decide to when you take that. But I think it was probably when I had my first child, when Dustin was born. And we found ourselves in church and sitting in some of the children's Bible classes and seeing the way these teachers were pouring themselves into the children and teaching and really training them, to love Jesus, to love God, and to love Scripture. The lifetime devotion that some of them had given really sparked an interest for me. And I began to ask myself, what do I want for my future? What do I want for the future of my children?
Right.
And I would say 24 is the first time my faith really became my own. And it became a very real point of decision making where I had to decide, am I going to do the things that everyone else wants me to do, or am I going to make choices that affect my own future, but also the future of my own children, that I can pass on this heritage of faith that I've grown up with, just haven't really appreciated. So that's kind of where it began when I was born with my parents, but in my own personal journey, it began, so much later than it should have.
Sure. Is that where I
care
get
to-
to share mine?
Yeah, you get to share yours.
Well, I was the same way. I was born. Part of my favorite part of. Oh, bye, Josh. Part of my favorite parts of growing up, going camping, was sometimes like going to church at these random little churches on the coastal town, and I really loved that and enjoyed that. I was baptized in 7th, 8th grade, somewhere around there. But I would say it probably really wasn't until my freshman or sophomore year that I really dedicated myself to becoming that better Christian, that better person. I went through some troubles, some hard times, and I guess my father, I talk about him quite a bit on this podcast, he really showed me who Jesus was. He showed me the truth of what a good Christian is, and is willing to not only love you through it, but walk through the pain and the suffering with you. And so we did some stuff together that kind of really drew me closer to Christ. He walked through me to get through with me through some of these problems that I was really having. He didn't walk through me; he wasn't an X-Men. But anyway, he just was really there for me and self-sacrificial and very honest with his own struggles as well. And so we kind of walked through it together. It made us closer. It made us closer than father and son, and it was almost like brothers. And so, it just, I don't know. It was life-changing for me, and it just pointed me towards what his first love, which was Christ and what he's done for him, which then became my love as well, and how much Jesus has done for me, how much he loves me, how much he accepts me, how much he sacrifices for me. And so that kind of really drew me to that. And then moving on, I got a little bit older, and I was in the youth group, and my youth minister, at the time, I was like, man, you are so lazy. Because he'd be like, hey, do you want to do the devotional on Wednesday night? Because we did Bible class, and then we had 15 minutes upstairs. We did like a small devotional and some singing, and then that was it, right?
Mm-hmm.
And so he'd be like, "Hey, do you want to do that? It's my rotation to do." And I was like, "You're so lazy. You never want to actually do it." And so I would get up there and I would start doing that. Well, I really enjoyed that extra time. I enjoyed crafting those lessons and those sermons and crafting and coming up with ideas and ways to present the Bible to multi-generational an audience and stuff like that. So then I started doing a little bit more, and my school, I remember because I'd never been in an assembly where the student body turned against like the principal, and was really upset. They introduced. They said, "Hey, this year, you guys have to do senior projects, and you will not be allowed to graduate unless you've completed this senior project." It was the end of our junior year into our senior year, and they said, and you have to, and here's the packet, and here's everything that you have to complete, and you will be separated out of your homeroom into a homeroom that is designed for you to work on your senior projects and kind of work through it and all that kind of stuff. And it was like a couple essays and two internships, or shadowing experiences and stuff like this. And like, I remember the student body freaked out. But for one of mine, they approved that I shadowed my youth minister. For like 2 months, I shadowed my youth minister and what it was like to do youth ministry full time. What does a youth minister do outside of Sunday and Wednesday nights? I got to go into Portland and go to a youth minister's meeting and stuff like that. And I was like, this is really cool. And I can't believe like how much these guys pray like all the time and work on stuff. And I planned like some youth events and some other stuff like that during that time. But it just kind of like grew this love for like wanting to do ministry. Like that's what I wanted to do. So I ended up, wanting to go into ministry. I never knew what type of ministry I wanted to be in, and I just happened to find myself in youth ministry still. I still don't know what kind of ministry I want to do. I just know that I'm being effective as a youth minister, and I enjoy it. So I'm going to do it as long as I can, or until God calls me to another position or another place or whatever it is. But I don't know, like there's this idea of, that song like about like the rubber tree and the ant, and I don't know why, but I always thought about that as like, man, I feel like if you're going to go into ministry, you have to be like a rubber tree. Like you have to be able to take a pounding and like bounce back.
Right.
And I think it's a lot of times it's like, the more you love on somebody, the more they're going to try to push you away until they realize that you're not going anywhere, and unfortunately, like as a youth minister, as a minister, like that's how we spend 90% of our time is loving on people. And they might hate on us, and we just have to like continue to be like steadfast and continue to be like Jesus. But that can wear on you after a while. And I think it's really important. I'm really glad that we're starting a little mini-series here about self-care, about ministry depression, and other stuff like that, because it can wear on you quite a bit. It's part of that idea that rarely people will spend a lot more time writing a negative review than they will a positive review.
Yeah, it's a hard thing.
Like any survey that you do, if you had a negative review, you're like, "Where's the survey?" If you had a great time, you're like, "Oh yeah, I'll do it. I might do it.
Yeah, if I get time.
Yeah, if I have time, if I remember, I'll do it. But if you had a bad experience, and so if you apply that to ministry, like if you preach or say something wrong or slip up, like people are ready to pounce and venomous and have this anger that comes from somewhere. But when we do good, it's like, yeah, well, we expect you to do good.
Yeah, so I remember growing up, there was always my grandmother, my mom's mother, my nana. She, every time I would see her, she would tell me, you're going to make a great preacher someday. Like she was willing me to become a preacher. I had no clue what I wanted or if that was even, in the cards for me. But she was willing me to become a preacher of the gospel. And so kind of growing up, that's just what I expected to occur. whether I wanted it or not, because I had been told this is what's going to happen. When I really began to see, like I said, as I'm raising kids and becoming more involved in the church, because up until then we just went to church, we kind of did our thing. It had a priority in our lives, but it wasn't quite the priority it should have been. But with children, it amplified that need and that desire for something really firm and solid in our lives. And so we came in and we decided we're going to plug in. We're going to really get serious about this thing called church. We either going to be all in or all out. We can't do this half-heartedly anymore. I can't teach and tell my kids the importance of one thing, but live it differently. And then people started coming and saying, hey, why don't you teach this class? Can you come over here and do this? I was asked to become a deacon there, and really take on more active roles in the leadership. And then I started preaching on Sunday afternoons at a little nursing home. And really, I learned how to preach at 2:00 on a Sunday afternoon, preaching to people who just needed a service in a nursing home. And half of them didn't remember, what you preached from week to week.
Right.
But I was able to really work on my skills in that way. And it led to seeing that, God did have a different calling for my life, that he really had something in mind for me that was so much more deeper and profound than the life I was leading. And what I found was there continued to be things that were put in my path where the Spirit of God was basically saying, if you're going to continue to choose a path that is not serving my church, then you're going to pay steeply for it.
Right.
Wow. And that came with stress, pressure, anxiety. I started missing things that my kids were a part of, because the path I was choosing had more to do with how much money I could make than how effectively I could serve the kingdom. And so I chose to leave that business and go back to school, get a degree in Bible and ministry, and devote my life to serving the church. And that's kind of what drew me into ministry. It was a combination of someone all my life telling me that's what I needed to do, and God coming in and saying, she was right. When will you listen to me? Kind of a thing,
Right. Yeah. Love when that happens.
And man, I wish it could be that obvious all the time. The challenge is, though, I remember those first years in ministry, that, man, you're so excited. Everything is fresh. Everything is new.
Right.
Games, are new. The experience is new. The flexibility of the schedule is new. Working with kids. Yeah, the honeymoon period. And you really feel compelled that you are doing God's work. And somewhere along the line, it becomes very easy for that calling, that passion, to become a job. And I think there is a difference. I don't know how you refer to what you do. Do you refer to it as a career? Do you refer to it as a job? Do you feel right when someone says, hey, what do you do for a living? I don't know. I find it challenging on how do I refer to this calling that we have in a way that people really understand kind of what it is. Do you have any thoughts on that?
How we respond to this calling?
Well, I mean, do you call it your career? Do you call it your job? Does that affect your mentality and what you do?
It's interesting. I think when things are going really well, I tend to refer to it as my calling. And when things are going really bad or difficult or stressful, it's my job. And I also feel like when ministry is going well and feeling good, I'm treating it as a calling. But when things are going bad, I tend to try to treat it as a job. What I mean by that is like things are going really frustrating, really bad. I'm gonna spend a lot of times in the office make sure I have a presence in the office. I'm going to make sure that like my bosses know that I'm in the office, and I'm working hard and I'm doing the hours. But in reality, like when things are going well in ministry, like I'm spending some time in the office, a healthy amount in the office, a healthy time communicating and talking with teens and parents, healthy time planning and being there and being supportive, working with the other ministers and the things like that. And so, that's kind of how like I feel it, and I really feel like I don't know. I really feel like there's something there. Like I feel like that's a gem or something that somebody a lot smarter than me could unpack for not just ministers, but for elders and for deacons. Like when you feel yourself stepping into the place where it feels like a job instead of a calling or a gift or something that you're pouring your heart into. Maybe it's time to like reevaluate and think about what's going on in your life and what's happening at the moment. That doesn't mean that like ministry, like we had a wonderful week at Soul Quest. I've had wonderful trips. I've had experiences. I think of some of the past ministry jobs I've had, and I've had weeks where like it was fantastic. I also had weeks where it was like really difficult. I had some teens who were going through some issues. I had some rogue elders doing some stuff that was like kind of making life really painful. However, like my job still felt like ministry. So not even just because things feel like they're going bad doesn't mean that I'm going to call it a job. I guess is what I'm trying to say as well there. But I like to think of it as a calling. I think something that has helped me recently is realizing like I guess. Sorry, I'm trying to protect the ones that I love and protect myself and say things in a healthy and in a good way. I've been in a place where I was going to throw in the towel. It's no joke. We've talked about it. Lauren and I have both been in a place where we felt like ministry was maybe it wasn't the right calling. Maybe it was just something selfish that I wanted to do. Maybe God has called me to ministry, not full time, but as a volunteer. And so, like, there was a time when like we were really considering trying to open up like a pizza place. And we had a pretty cool location. I had some people who were pretty interested in helping and starting that business venture and opening up a pizza place. I was very experienced at the time making dough and wanting to like be in a place between a couple middle schools and a high school place and be like an option for students to come after school and do stuff like that. And it was because I was in a really bad place as far as the ministry goes, and I was feeling burnt out and I was feeling like I couldn't do anything right. But it was because I was focused on the problems and the negative input I was getting from a few people. What I was not focused on was the fact that I had teens who were hungry for the gospel, who were texting and wanting to get together. We had multiple Bible studies going because the kids and the teens were interested. Even though I had a small youth group, I had 100% turnout for when we were doing youth trips and youth and stuff like that because they wanted to go. They wanted to be a part of it when we were having a youth group. And so, like, it's really easy to get, like, focused in and narrow-minded on the toxic and negative stuff and not about the things that are going really well and that are blooming and that like in those moments. And so I don't know if I answered that question well or if I talked about that topic well, but it's really hard. And I think it's part of that ministry health is that like you can get so bogged down that we forget to like look up.
Yeah. So I always think of I think of the phrase they say, find something that you love to do and you'll never work a day in your life.
Yeah.
And there's a little bit of truth to that. But if you find something that you love, you're going to work harder every day of your life because it is still work. But
that is an alarm I set for my Soul Quest class to be over.
That's
That's
funny.
awkward. That's funny.
So if it is still work,
Time for
right?
worship.
But it changes the way that we view our job. And I think it is easy for a calling to become a job. And when a calling becomes a job, it becomes something that I do because I have to do it,
Right.
not because I want to do it or not because I feel really compelled to do this work. And that's a two-way street, right? It takes both sides to be truthful to the calling. It takes a minister who recognizes that this thing that we do in serving the kingdom is more than any other job that we've ever had.
Right.
And that doesn't mean that those other jobs aren't important, that they aren't effective, that they aren't valuable. But there's something so distinctly different about serving the church
Right.
than any other thing that you may choose to do. And sometimes, as churches and as church leaders who are in charge of managing ministers, we have to realize that managing ministers in the church is different than managing employees in any other business that we have.
Absolutely.
And so
Absolutely.
when managing ministers becomes more like a job than a calling, then hiring and firing and making transitions just becomes a business decision.
Right.
It's not about protecting the vision of what is to come, or the relationships that are there. And my desire as a minister is like we've talked about, is to be one of the guys in the group that is in charge with the vision and the mission and the direction of a church.
Absolutely.
Not as one who simply is just the hireling that preaches and teaches every week, but a part of that direction of the church. And I think when we can recognize that this is our life, our marriages, our children, our families, our social life,
That is so
every
true. That's
everything
so
we
true.
do is wrapped up in this thing that God has called us to do. And just, hey, you know what? You don't fit the direction that we want to go. So we're just going to let you go somewhere else. That is such an assault on our very identity.
Well,
That
not only just not just an assault, but it's almost disrespectful. And like it's gross.
well,
That's a
and,
good
and
way
let's
I
just
like
say
how
this
to put
too,
it.
right?
It's just gross.
No, because this can go two ways,
Yeah.
right? Because as
Yeah.
ministers, we have to be, open to changing that.
Yeah.
If a leadership decides they want to move in a certain way,
Right.
then we have to be willing to say, you know what, I can get on board with that vision. I can get on
Right.
board with that direction. And sometimes when, as ministers, we have moved from calling to just simply a job, if we are treating that as just a job, then we haven't done our churches any services as well,
Right.
by doing that. So when I go back to the scripture in Revelation, you've left the love you had in the beginning.
Right.
It is really easy for what we do just to become monotonous and rote and just a job.
Right.
And so, we have to put some things in place that allow us to really say, my calling will not simply become a job.
What's really interesting to me is that, like, there's that when you're looking for a youth ministry job, you always are looking out for the people who are trying to get the 2-for-1 deal. You know what I'm saying? Right? The people are like,
Absolutely.
hey, yeah, like we are expecting your wife or whoever your family to be involved in your ministry full time. And I think we're both blessed to have wives who they feel like that is part of their calling. And Lauren, I can speak for her. Like, she enjoys being a part of the youth ministry. She enjoys coming to my classes. I don't know why. She enjoys hearing me speak. But I think it's more she enjoys spending that time with those teenagers and getting to know them. She enjoys taking the vacation time and going, like, to Soul Quest and some other places like that. And so here's the ironic part, right? So you try to, you don't try to stay away, but you try to make that clear, like, hey, my wife does this and it's her choice and it's not her job, which means that if she chooses not to be a part of it one day, that's on her, and that should not affect, my employment status, you know. But at the end of the day, it doesn't matter. It does not matter whether or not your wife has that calling and feels like it works. Like, your family's intertwined with that congregation. And here's something that I was thinking about it. Like, what makes it right and what makes it wrong? If a minister, I think it's sad when a minister can't have an open conversation with the shepherds and say, hey, I feel like I'm being called to work at this congregation. I've been interviewing and talking with them. Could you guys, I pray with me as I kind of decide this and go with this, and to be able to have that freedom to be able to have that conversation without the fear of, oh, you're looking? Well, we're looking too. So go ahead and give
Right.
your 30 days. That's business. That's business. That's business. Let's move away from business. And let's move towards, hey, I love and care about you. That's why I'm talking with you about this. And love and care about me and talk with me about this. Like, that's a healthier way to be able to go through and do that, right? Mm-hmm. And I hope and I pray that that churches can move towards that model, that we can really practice that within our hearts and with and how we do things. But then at the same time, like, how difficult of a decision, for a church just to let a minister go, because your children are intertwined with that church. Your wife is intertwined with that church in ministries and friendships and things like that. And I just, like, it's depressing and it's sad and it's hard to hear. And I mean, it's so uprooting to whoever it is. And I don't know, like, staff changes, elder changes is so difficult and hard and decisions to make, and I feel like they shouldn't be made lightly, and they shouldn't be made in heats of moments, and I feel like they should take time. We talk and we joke all the time about how slow churches move, but in some cases I feel like they might move a little bit too quick in making those kind of decisions. And so so what do we do to I don't even know how you transition into this last little point we were going to talk to, but from there. But
I think you just move to it, because in order for me to make sure my calling stays, my calling doesn't become a job.
Yeah.
There has to be some of those things that we have in place for us to know what's going on. As just in my own personal space, I need to be really aware of what people are asking me.
Yeah.
If I have a lot of people that are coming up and saying, hey, man, are you okay? Are you good? Either I have a whole lot of people that are really concerned about my well-being,
right,
or I'm putting off some kind of vibe that I'm not good.
Right, yeah.
And someone is getting some input from me where they are concerned and asking me that question. Sometimes it's just the way we carry ourselves. I am an 8 and on the Enneagram, and my wife would always say, "Why are you angry all the time?" Or not all the time, but "Why are you angry?" I'm like, "I'm not angry."
You're not pulling me into this witchcraft of Enneagrams.
I'm not, but I said, "I'm not angry. I'm just upset, or I'm just frustrated." It was like, "Well, you sound angry." Well, as I read through, I am angry. I'm an angry elf. You must be a South Pole elf. I experience things through that gut instinctive reaction. And in the Enneagram, it says you experiences all emotions as some form of anger.
Oh,
like,
wow.
Oh, that's interesting.
That is interesting.
And so all of my life, all of our lives for 24 years, Heather has said those things. And I have said the same thing. I'm not angry. Why are you asking me if I'm angry? And so sometimes our demeanor can bring that about. But a lot of times there is something about an interaction that isn't normal, that someone says, "Hey, man, are we good?" I'm like, "Yeah, we're good." Why would you ask that? Well, they would ask that because there's something that's changed. And we need to be acutely aware of those things. because those are pointers that can let us know maybe when we have done that. When my phone rings and my first instinct isn't to go, oh, so and so's calling, let me answer. When my first instinct is this, oh man, another phone call. I need to be aware of that emotion that's coming up,
Yeah.
and get into some time of meditation, of allowing my mind to be cleared, of really exploring what it is that is kind of poking and prodding at my heart.
Right.
And I shared this with some of the kids this past week. You know, we dealt with some kind of ups and downs of some crazy things. And you and I sat one of them down. And I said, listen, the Holy Spirit wants to talk to somebody today and tomorrow. And Satan doesn't want them to hear it. And Satan will use good people, Christian people, to prevent other people from hearing what the Spirit of God wants to tell them.
Yeah.
Don't be a tool for Satan. And
Just how God will use anybody, so will Satan.
right. And so understanding that when those things come, oftentimes they are coming on me because Satan doesn't want people to connect with what we have going on. And so recognizing that this is a tool that Satan uses to prevent real growth and maturation, however you want to say that word.
Don't ask me. I'm the worst one to.
I mean, I know
I've
that is
had
true. You just make up a
words.
word in its place.
That's right. That's what my mama taught me.
Satan wants us to burn out.
Yeah.
He wants us to get to that place where we just get exasperated, throw our hands in the air, and just walk away.
Right.
And he wants us to
done.
do that and to be done. And he wants us to do that right at the point where we're on the verge of really making progress into the community and into the church, and into the darkness. And so we have to set up safeguards and points of awareness where we can see it coming in through the windshield, not in the rearview mirror.
Yeah, and that's what we're going to talk about next episode, is this idea of what kind of safeguards and how to ministers and how to elders and deacons kind of do that and move through that and head towards those kind of paths. How can we protect ourselves as ministry staff? And then how can you help protect elders and deacons kind of move through that?
What's the behind the beards moment? I'm asking you.
I think the behind the beards moment is pretty evident. That that when we start focusing, that we have to. I had to reevaluate what I was about to say because I forgot the behind the beards moment is for people who are not in ministry, and what you can take away from this as a as just a regular, ordinary. That sounds so bad. Like as a churchgoer, is that there's this constant struggle to keep church, and I feel like Satan constantly tries to get us to make church more like a business, more like this, instead of this unique community of people who are coming together for this common purpose. And I think when we forget what our purpose is as a church, which is communal worship, lifting each other towards God and praising Him, and when we stop doing those things and we start focusing too much on other stuff, then Satan's able to get his foot in the door and to say, okay, great. If I can do this, then I can slowly start ripping things apart. I can slowly start giving people selfish desires. If we can start thinking about it. And so I think, man, how much of the New Testament is all about, it's not about you, it's about God and serving others. Like, how much does Jesus have to say, humble yourselves, it ain't the first, it's the last, wash other people's feet, until we finally sit here and go, oh, it's not about me, it's about other people. And it goes the same way as if you're a ministry leader, but it also goes the way if you are not a ministry leader. If you're a community ministry person, you're just part of that community. Take care of your youth ministers. Take care of your preachers. Take care of your elders, please. And your deacons. Love on them. Support them. Tell them they're doing a good job, but more importantly, pray for them constantly. And I think that's my behind the beards moment.
Yeah.
Is just to love and take care of these people, because it's hard. It's not a job. It's a lifestyle. So we're constantly thinking about it. we're constantly wanting to do and be better at it. And so, don't grow weary in doing good. Like, that couldn't have been a better segue into that verse, is that we can't grow weary from doing good, because what we're doing is good, and it's going to get heavy because this world is messy and life is messy. And so we have to do these good things in Jesus' name, and we have to support those who are in ministry and support those who are leading our churches, and pray for them and help them constantly. So allow Christ to use you to do this. Hey, today I want you to send a text message or an email or something to your preacher and to your elders, especially your shepherds, your elders, and tell them that you love them and that you appreciate what they've done for them today. If you hear this podcast, I hope that you do that today and lift them up in prayer, including your deacons.
And ministers aren't exempt from that, right?
And ministers are not exempt from that. I will sit over here and I will craft an email right after this and send it right to my elders and say, hey, I appreciate all that you have done for me, and I'm continue to pray for you guys as you lead the church.
Absolutely.
Because we don't get enough of those kind of emails. We get a lot of emails about, hey man, you left your coffee in the youth room on the table again.
Again.
So anyway, I'm Aaron, and this is Josh, and we will see you next week on Behind the Beards.
Till we're all growing a beard. A man's face should never be bare. We just want some facial hair. We're anticipating, yeah, everyone's waiting for a beard.